Yo, what is up, my friends? It's your boy Steve from Straight Fire Picks. We're back with your NFL Week 3 spreads and totals predictions for every game on the NFL slate. We're going to cover a spread and a total from every game. We're going to have 32 total picks in the video. Like I said, spread a total from every game. Let's lock in and have a great week this week.
Well, my presence isn't real. It's another bad one like this is scale. It's straight fire, all my bets straight from. You're in the house that Cap made now. Straight fire.
As always, my friends, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button for me. Always appreciate that. We are on the road to 10,000 subscribers. Appreciate all of your guys' support as always. Let's have a great week 3. Picking some NFL spreads and totals. We need to bounce back from last week because we were not very good. We were 6-10 on spreads and 6-10 on totals. Certainly did not go the way that we wanted it to, but it's a long season. You're going to have weeks like this for sure. But I think now with a couple weeks under our belt, I think we got some adjustments. We're gonna have a better week, guys. I'm speaking it into existence. We had a pretty solid week 1. Week 2 was not as good to us. So we're going to bounce back in week 3, guys. Let's speak it into existence. Let's have a great week here. So let's hop right into the games. So we're going to start with the Dolphins at the Bills. The spread here set to 12.5 in favor of the Bills. Total set to 49.5 here up in Buffalo. Highmark Stadium is Thursday night at 8:20 p.m. So obviously this is going to be a very interesting game. You know, division rivalry. Dolphins-Bills is always fun to watch. The spread here, I think, is justified for what it's worth. The spread set to 12.5 in favor of the Bills. Dolphins have been completely horrible to start the season, right? Their defense has been horrible. They didn't even make Danny Jones punt in week 1. Week 2, Drake May also threw the ball over him as well. So this defense for the Dolphins has certainly been getting picked on. They have not been very good. Offensively, they finally figured some things out last week. They had a better week, but still turned the football over. But at least they were able to move the football and put up some points. So that was a positive sign now offensively. The press conference after was cringy with Mike McDaniel. I'm not going to lie. The dude being like, well, to win the game, you got to win the game. I'm like, right. I just don't know if his head is really in it. Doesn't look like it, right? When you look at him on the sideline, you watch the body language of the Dolphins in general, it is not good. It really hasn't been in either game. So you can't bring that attitude into Buffalo. I'll tell you that right now. He better somehow fire these boys up. Otherwise, this is going to be a wash. I mean, this is going to be really ugly. Josh Allen has been practically unstoppable so far to start the season. And this Bills defense really turned the corner last week, albeit versus the Jets, but they were much better than they were in week 1. And then Josh Allen's been unstoppable so far all season, which is what you expect. They were averaging 35.5 points per game so far to open the season. So this is really tough for the Dolphins, right? So with all that being said, I think we got the Buffalo Bills who are covering the 12.5 guys. I think they do get this done. Obviously, I do love the Bills. You guys know that. But I think this is simply, I will fade the Bills. I faded the Bills last week, and I regretted it, right? Not doing that this week. I think in this particular spot, in a short week, this is just going to be too much for Miami to handle on the road. I just don't see them. I don't see them hanging in this game, despite it being a division rivalry game. Some division rivalry games are cut different. If Miami is coming in here 1-1, you know, they're starting to play some defense, they get some things going, some good vibes, maybe, but they got bad vibes, bad defense, and they're just, the continuity just isn't there, guys. Until proven otherwise, I think we could happily fade the Dolphins. We're going to take the Bills minus 12.5, and we're going to take the over 49.5 points. Josh Allen, this offense is unstoppable. I think they'll score just about every time they have the ball. And I think the Dolphins, like I said, did figure some things out offensively last week, so I think they'll put up some points on the board, enough to get us to the over here, but I still think the Bills cover. So we got the Bills 12.5, minus 12.5, and the over 49.5 points. Our second game that we got the Falcons, Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. We got a 5-point spread. Here on this one, Panthers underdogs by 5 points, plus 5. Total set to 43.5 here. So coming into this one, the Panthers were one of the teams that broke my heart on the spread last week. Arizona was winning against Carolina by about, 17, 18 points, something like that. Carolina made a comeback in the fourth and ended up backdooring ended up backdooring the spread cover versus Arizona, which was just nasty because I had Arizona like -6. So that was one of the ones that I looked at. I'm like, that was garbage. That was complete garbage. Like, that should not have happened like that at all. But things happen, guys. It's sports. Like I said, anything can happen. Some things you just can't project. They were, yeah. Anyway, it was completely frustrating. But from Carolina's point of view, they finally started getting some offensive rhythm, right? I think they kind of needed that for themselves, just to be like, hey, we got some momentum now on offense. We can actually do this. I know it was, against more of a prevent defense, if you will, where they back off a little bit there in the fourth quarter to not give up the big plays. But I think that was actually really good for the Panthers' benefit as far as getting them a little bit of momentum offensively and trying to obviously turn the season around because they're 0-2 and they haven't really looked particularly good in either game. So I think people were expecting a little bit more from Carolina this year. Not like a lot more, but they were expecting them to be a little bit more competitive than they've been with the way they finished last season. So I think this is an interesting spot with them coming at home versus the Falcons team playing its second straight game here on the road, obviously, and on a short-ish week, right? They played on Sunday Night Football in Minnesota. Now they're traveling to Carolina to play the Panthers. This is going to be tough for Atlanta, I think, just because of that setup. And this is a division rival for what it's worth. I do think, it's likely to be that Atlanta probably wins the game. Well, my picks for this game, I'm actually going to take the Panthers to cover the +5. And I do like the under 43.5 points. I just think overall you're going to have a lower scoring game in this one. Falcons defense has been pretty good. Carolina's defense hasn't been too bad. They haven't been great, obviously. I believe both of the first two opponents scored 26 on them, which obviously, like I said, isn't great, but it's not like horrible. I think they can limit Atlanta a little bit here. Both these teams do like to run the football with Chuba Hubbard and Bijan Robinson. So I think in this spot they can get a shorter game. I think the Panthers will hang in there. But give me the Falcons to win. I think the Falcons do end up winning this game, 20-17 in that range. But I will take the Panthers +5 and the under 43.5 points here. Okay, our third game that we got the Green Bay Packers at the Cleveland Browns. +8 on the spread here for the Cleveland Browns. They are 8-point underdogs. Total set to 42.5. So this is interesting. We obviously faded the Browns last week. That was one of our good spread calls where the Ravens covered versus them. No surprises there. They ran away with that game, particularly late. Really turned it on there. So can the Browns hang in at home versus the Packers? That's the question. They got Joe Flacco. They had a defense at times that could play well, obviously with Myles Garrett and some of them boys there. So can they hang with a Packers team that has been dominant so far to start the season in 2 home games? Can they take it on the road and do it? I do think the Packers do take this on the road, and I think they're going to take it to Cleveland. At the end of the day, guys, Parsons has made such a huge impact on the Packers. I got to recant what I said in week number 1 where I didn't think the guy was all that good. He's been that good in the first 2 weeks, right? He still isn't big time because, in the playoffs, what I said was true. The dude didn't really show up in the playoffs, so we were going a little bit off of that. But the first 2 weeks of the season, he has made a big impact on the pass rush. And going after a guy like Joe Flacco, that guy better be ready to get rid of that football quick. Everything about the Green Bay defense has been absolutely lights out. They've had, shutdown defense on the back end as well from the corners. Like I said, they've played really well all the way around. There really isn't a lot of holes in this defense. And then you can say the same offensively as well. With Josh Jacobs and those receivers playing well, Romeo Doubs, obviously they've been very, very good. So I think it continues here. I am going to take the Packers -8 on the spread here. I do think they cover. I do think the over 42.5 points hits as well. I think Cleveland with Flacco, they can move the ball at times, and I do think they get enough scoring here to get us to the over. But I do think the Packers cover. I think you're going to see more consistency here from Green Bay. I'm not sold on anything with Cleveland to make me think they can hang with the Packers here. Now, could be wrong. The Browns certainly at home are a little bit dangerous because they could play a little bit of defense. And Flacco could certainly turn the clock back at times. I just don't think they have enough at the skill positions to hang, though, with Green Bay. Flacco, maybe if he had some more targets, receivers to throw to, It might be a different story, but just given his age, he's declining a bit now, and just not enough at the wide receiver position to hang here with Green Bay. So give me the Packers -8 and give me the over 42.5 points here. Okay, next game we got the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. -1.5 spread in favor of the Jaguars here. Total set to 43.5. So obviously the Texans let us down there on Monday Night Football, losing to the Buccaneers in the last seconds of that game with 6 seconds to go. Buccaneers getting that late touchdown. So that obviously hurt us. Texans lost and went to 0-2. Jaguars on the road versus Cincinnati, lost 31-27. Basically to a backup quarterback as Joe Burrow went out of that game fairly early and Browning took over. Now the Jacksonville defense did generate 3 interceptions, which is obviously interesting there. But overall, they really couldn't stop them consistently, obviously, in that one. So after a great week 1 performance from the defense, week 2 was kind of a letdown to me, just because, they couldn't stop them getting yards. Now, Cincinnati's offense, though, they do have a lot at the skill position, so they're tough to stop. I'm going to give them a little bit of credit there. And they did generate some turnovers, so that was certainly good as well there. Texans defense, pretty solid the first couple weeks here. Nothing really to complain about here with the Texans defense. Holding the Bucs to 20, giving up that late touchdown, and holding the Rams, obviously, there to 14. So their defense has been bad. They've looked very much the part at times. Sometimes, last week they struggled a little bit more versus the run than I thought they would with Bucky Irving and Rashad White. But I do think this is a nice bounce back spot actually for Jacksonville. Obviously, Texans going out on the road. Not a lot of good vibes or momentum in Houston right now. As they're 0-2. CJ Stroud is being called into question whether he's actually the guy for them now a little bit. You're starting to hear those rumblings. Just because of his play, obviously last year wasn't at top notch, and then so far this season, a lot of the same. You see the tools and stuff, but man, he is missing some throws that I'm surprised that he's missing. Just from what he did in his rookie year, so he's been struggling. The offensive line's been struggling. He didn't have a lot of time for what it's worth in that Tampa Bay game. They threw a lot at him, so I trust the Jaguars a little bit more here, definitely offensively. A little bit more consistency here from them. Their offense still played very well in the first 2 weeks of the season. They were right there in that game. Like I said, they played well enough offensively to get it done. Now, there was that little sideline spat with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence there, where Trevor Lawrence waved him off. If you want to make something of that, I'm not going to make anything of that at this point. I think it's a little bit of the competitive fire coming out in Lawrence. But we're hoping that doesn't really continue, because that's not good vibes, guys. You don't want to see disrespect there, obviously, between the quarterback and the coach there. So I do like the Jags to bounce back. I'll take them -1.5. I will also take the under 43.5 here. It's a division rival game. Texans defense has been good enough, and I think the Jaguars defense is better than how they played last week. Obviously, that versus Cincinnati. They did generate the turnovers. But I think they could get stops a little bit more than they did last week. Return to that week 1 form. They were very good in week number 1. So I think they could be better here in week 3, especially at home. But I think the Texans defense could travel as well. I think the Jaguars defense at home, and I think the Texans defense is legit. Legit. So I think they could play here. I think it'll be a lower scoring game, but I do think the Jaguars will win and cover. Houston has won, I believe, the last 7 in Jacksonville. So Jacksonville's got to break that streak at some point. I think it's here today. The vibes are just slightly better in Jacksonville. So give me the Jaguars -1.5 and the under 43.5 points here. Cincinnati Bengals at the Minnesota Vikings. So this is a very interesting storylines in this one. Vikings favored by 3, -3 on the spread. Total set to 42.5. As you know, both starting quarterbacks are out for this game. Joe Burrow and J.J. McCarthy both sidelined with injuries. So this is a battle of backup quarterbacks. So it's basically a matter of who do you think is better? Browning from the Bengals or Carson Wentz from the Vikings? I'm going to take Browning. I've seen enough of both guys in recent past where I really believe right now Browning has the upper hand. And I think he has the upper hand just with this offense with Jamar Chase and company. I think they're going to be a little bit more consistent than the Minnesota offense. I haven't seen anything in the Minnesota offense to give me any confidence. They've had issues with injuries on the offensive line. They've had some injury issues on defense as well. So I don't particularly see the Vikings here figuring it out in week 3. I think this is a great spot to take the plus points here on the Bengals, who are coming off a win. They didn't really miss too much of a beat without Joe Burrow in there. Browning, like I said, for the most part, played well outside of the turnovers. And they still were able to overcome that and win. So that should tell you a lot here. Their defense hung in there enough. And they obviously, like I said, were able to overcome those turnovers, which is pretty impressive. The fact that they were able to do that. So I think this defense is a bit better this season. And Browning, when we've seen him come in the past, he's been very productive. I can trust his production, and I can trust his weapons as well, right? With T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Iosovas and Chase Brown and those guys. I do trust them a bit more than I trust the Vikings here. The Vikings, new injury on the report with Aaron Jones. Doesn't look like he's going to play. So it's just going to be Mason, which Mason's a great back, but obviously being down Aaron Jones is obviously significant as well. Aaron Jones is a very good third down back, very good receiving back, and he's very good running the football as well. He's one of the better backs in the league as well. So I think this is a great spot here for the Bengals. I'll happily take them +3, and we'll rock the under 42.5 points here. Really like that setup here. I like the under just simply because, like I said, we do have 2 backup quarterbacks. I think if I'm saying an offense is going to be more consistent, I'm going to trust the Bengals a bit more here, right? But I do think there will be struggles, obviously. I'm not saying that to say that there won't be struggles in this game offensively. There probably will be. So I do like that under as well. So give me the Bengals +3 and the under 42.5 points. Next game on the slate, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots. +1 on the spread here for the Patriots. Total set to 44.5. So we got obviously Aaron Rodgers versus Drake May in this one. Battle of 2 defenses that have been kind of poo-poo so far this season, right? Particularly the Steelers defense has gotten a lot of hate because they're one of the highest payroll defense, and they've been one of the worst so far. You got guys like Jalen Ramsey there, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, and they've really struggled. They have not played well at all. So the Seahawks hang 31 on them. The Jets hang 32 on them. It's obviously not good there from the defense. Aaron Rodgers has been, obviously, he was very good in week 1. Definitely cooled off a bit there in week 2. But I think Aaron Rodgers could still sling it, obviously. I think he's still got it. He showed it in week 1. And I think he bounces back here a bit and plays a little bit better versus a defense that, in the Patriots that, it hasn't been that great either. Obviously, giving up all the points there to Miami that we talked about earlier in the video. Miami figured out their offense versus New England. So all I'm saying is, I think there's some issues on both sides defensively. It comes down to, who do I think is going to be more consistent? Give me the experience here with the Steelers, right? Aaron Rodgers in this offense with DK Metcalf. I could trust them, I think, a little bit more than I could trust the young quarterback there in Drake May. Even though I do like this Patriots team, I think they'll get better as the season goes. Give me the Steelers -1 here, and give me that over 44.5 points. Like I said, I don't really like either defense here. I think there's going to be points in this one. Drake May should be able to also put up some points as well. But as far as winning the game, I think the experience with Rodgers, if this comes down to like a field goal, I trust Rodgers to get it done more than I would Drake May. So give me the Steelers -1 and the over 44.5 points. Next game, we got the Los Angeles Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles favored by -3.5 here. Total set to 44.5. So Eagles obviously here coming back home after a big win over Kansas City. That's huge. Rams here traveling for their 2nd straight road game. You guys know how I feel about this at this point. We had a team earlier in the video that was on the 2nd straight road game as well. And the Rams here, West Coast team staying east, right? So they played at Tennessee last week, and they're at the Eagles this week. So this is a tough test here for the Rams. Can they hang in there and keep it close? Obviously, you could argue they definitely have the team to do so. Their defense has played very well. And, of course, they have Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. They got the weapons in the team to obviously be competitive here. But the question is will they? I don't think so. I think the Eagles here are at least going to cover the spread. It still could be relatively close, but I think the Eagles will win by more than 3.5. I'll take the Eagles on the spread here. I think we still haven't seen the best from Philly. Obviously, their pass offense has been pretty anemic so far with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but they should be a lot better. There's no doubt about that. And I think they start to figure things out a little bit more here in week 3 coming home. And they need to. I think they'll be able to also establish the run with Barkley, obviously. That part is still working for the most part. But I think they'll start to finally get this pass game working a little bit more as well. And I think they'll have a much better performance at home. Like I said, for the Rams, I think this is just a very tall ask. Back-to-back road games on the East Coast for them. I think this is going to be rough for them, honestly. I think this is going to be a tough spot. Still think this over will hit. Like I said, I love both of these offenses, obviously, with Stafford and the Eagles, obviously, as well there. You guys know what they could do. I do like I said, I do like both these offenses. I think the total's set a little bit too low. It's no offense to really either defense, but I do think this total's set too low, and I think we'll see some points in this one. And I think the Eagles will cover. I think they'll start to get that pass game working a little bit more. Give me the Eagles minus 3.5 and the over 44.5 points. Next, we have the New York Jets at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Minus 7 spread here for the Bucs, favored by 7. Total set to 44.5. So really the Bucs coming here a little bit banged up on the offensive line. I think they have one normal guy in his right place on the offensive line. So they're going to have some issues here up front a little bit. And then obviously the Jets coming in after getting their butt whooped in week 2 versus the Bills. Likely going to be playing a backup quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. It's possible that Fields could play, but it looks like it might be Tyrod Taylor here. So it's pretty early in the week, so make sure you guys check that out before the game, obviously. But Bucs, like I said, favored by 7, total set to 44.5. The question becomes is, can Baker and this offense overcome the offensive line issues versus a team like the Jets? Yeah. The Jets have been really bad defensively and really haven't been generating that type of a rush so far this season. So I think they can overcome the injuries up front. Baker's obviously mobile enough to get out of there, throw on the run. He's been an MVP candidate so far this season. He's popping up in that conversation. Even though, can he maintain it? We'll see. But he has certainly played that way the first 2 weeks of the season. He has played fantastic. So I think we'll see more of that here today with Mike Evans and Ibuka and obviously Bucky Irving and Rashad White. I think they'll be able to get this done offensively. And defensively, I think they're going to have a field day versus this Jets team. Jets might not score on this one, guys. Todd Bowles one of those blitz packages. This is going to be tough for the Jets. Offensively, I think they could really struggle, obviously, in this one. Kind of like Houston did last week. They're just not in a good spot, right? They're traveling on the road here to Tampa for the home opener for Tampa. I think Tampa is going to be pumped up, and these fans are going to be pumped up, with them coming back 2-0 after 2 tough road games. They are in a great spot to open the season. So I'm going to take the Bucs minus 7. I do think they cover. I'm going to actually take the under 44.5 points simply because I don't think the Jets are going to score a lot. So unless we're going to think the Bucs are going to score 45, I think it's possible the Jets could even get shut out. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'll give the Jets up to 10 points. And then obviously the Bucs going beyond like 35 points, beyond 34 points. That's not realistic, I don't think, to project that. So we're going to take the under here. We'll take the Bucs minus 7 and the under 44.5 points. Next game, we have the Colts at the Titans. Titans 3.5 point underdogs here in this spot. Total set to 43.5 in this one. This is obviously here the Titans with Cam Ward, rookie quarterback. They have not looked too good to open the season in their first couple games. Outside of defensively a bit there in Denver, they played pretty well defensively in that one. Last week it just didn't happen, guys. The home opener for them, they were not very good. Rams took care of business there, 33-19. Titans got some late points there to kind of make it a little bit closer. But overall, guys, the Titans are definitely going to struggle this season. There's no doubt about that. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Colts have looked like, I got to pump the brakes. They look early season like a Super Bowl team. They do. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying if you look at the first 2 games, you'd be like, holy crap. Danny Jones looks like Tom Brady, and this defense looks like the defenses that he had. They've played obviously very well. They're fired up. They've obviously a big win last week at home versus Denver. Danny Jones was absolutely fantastic, and this defense was able to generate some takeaways as well. So really, they've been terrific in the first 2 home games. They're going out on the road to take on obviously an inferior Titans team, and the spread I think is set too low. I think the Colts are going to take care of business here. We got to buy some stock right now in Danny Jones. I think it is what it is. I mean, what are they punted one time in 2 games? I think they punted once in the third quarter last game. I think that was it. So we got to buy some stock here on the Colts, guys, especially at -3.5. That spread's too low for this game. Colts will cover -3.5, and I do like the under 43.5. I still think I don't think the Titans are going to score that many points to justify an overtake here, but and the Colts going out on the road, they should slow down a little bit offensively. I'm not saying the Colts are going to score on every drive every week. That's just not going to. That shouldn't happen. But I mean, you never know, guys. I was surprised by the first 2 weeks, so we'll see what happens here in week 3. But I do think the Colts cover the 3.5. But give me that under 43.5 to go with that as well, guys. Love those picks for that game. Next game we got on tap, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Washington Commanders. 3.5-point favorites here for the Commanders. Likely going to be Marcus Mariota starting here for the Commanders. We'll see, though. Again, this is one you kind of got to be a little leery of. The spread originally was 6 in favor of the Commanders. Now this is down to 3.5 with the Jaden Daniels news. So we'll see what happens. Totals here is set to 44.5. So the question becomes in this one is who are you going to have playing quarterback for the Commanders? It's looking like it's going to be Marcus Mariota. If I had to project, which is that really a huge drop-off for the Commanders? I don't know. I mean, he played very well in relief duty last year. So he's a very capable backup. He's a very dangerous backup. He can obviously move with his legs and stuff, and he looked pretty good throwing the ball as well. So, we'll see obviously what happens there. Raiders coming off that Monday night loss there to the Chargers 20-9 when they turned the ball over a bunch there with Geno Smith. I think Geno threw 3 picks in that game. Definitely did not look himself. I think Geno was a lot better than what he showed there on Monday night for sure. But overall, guys, we're getting some flowers here a little bit to the Raiders defense. They've played a little better than even I thought they would. Obviously in Foxborough there, holding the Patriots to 13, and then holding that Chargers offense, which has been really good, to 20, and just 3 points in the second half. You can't really blame the defense there. They've played well enough to keep the Raiders in games. So, can they hold their own versus a backup quarterback? I like Marcus Mariota, but I still think this Raiders defense will be okay. I think they'll be able to get some stops here, and I think Geno will bounce back here on the road. I know they're traveling east, but I do think they'll play obviously much better. I think Geno and Pete Carroll will figure some things out a little bit here in week number 3. I don't see him playing like that again. We haven't seen a Geno game with 3 picks like that in quite a while. I think obviously there's better things in store for him. Also, Brock Bowers was definitely limited on Monday night, so maybe an extra week for him as well will help. They certainly need him healthy there in that offense to go along with Jacoby Myers. There on Ashton Genty. Genty did not play very well, so we need to see a little bit more from him. I think he's got the capabilities, but he's got to play better than he did, obviously, there on Monday night. But I think the Raiders could bounce back and keep it close, right? Commanders may win this game, but 3.5, I think we're getting a nice number here on the Raiders. I'll take the Raiders plus 3.5. And I'll rock the under 44.5. I think both defenses, I didn't really mention a lot about the Commanders' defense, but the Commanders' defense has been pretty solid as well. I think both defenses will hang in there. It'll be a lower scoring game. Decided by a field goal, so obviously we're going to take the Raiders in that case at the plus 3.5 on either side of the coin. But I think the Raiders can have a good chance to win this one here on the road if it is versus Mariota. So keep that in mind for this game as you guys are looking to pick this game. It's still up in the air with Jaden Daniels a little bit. It is looking like Mariota though. But all right, our next game on the slate, we got the Denver Broncos at the Los Angeles Chargers. 2.5-point spread here in favor of the Chargers. Total here set to 45.5. Storyline so far from this season, the Chargers have looked phenomenal in their first 2 games. They obviously beat the Chiefs. They beat the Raiders. 2 division wins already. Their 3rd straight divisional game, which is kind of interesting to open the season. That's kind of wild. So, man, if the Chargers were able to win this one, they'd start 3-0 in the division and have a stranglehold on this division early. That's for sure. Meanwhile, the Broncos definitely disappointing late in that game versus Indianapolis, losing that game there 29-28. And then they honestly struggled in week 1 too versus the Titans, and that win 20-12. But offensively, they were not very good in that game. So the question is, do they go on the road here? Can they be competitive at basically or asking the Broncos to win if you're looking at a 2.5-point spread? The odds of the game being decided by 2 or less are usually slim, I would say. It usually doesn't happen. But so can Bo Nix kind of right the ship here and have a bounce back week after a little bit of a sideline scuffle there with Sean Payton? He was another one that kind of got into it with his coach. I think his quarterback's getting out of line, guys. I don't know what's going on. But here, I think we got to roll with the Chargers, right? -2.5. I'm going to take the Chargers -2.5 here. I'm pretty comfortable taking that. Herbert and this offense has looked great. Obviously, with Keenan Allen coming back, he has made a huge difference. He has been phenomenal with 60-plus yards receiving and a touchdown in each of his first 2 games. So he's been terrific. Obviously, Quentin Johnston's breaking out as well. He's playing well, and they still got Ladd McConkey, who was pretty much the number 1 receiver from last year. So they have a very deep wide receiver core. They have honestly pretty deep tight ends too with Will Dissly, and we took Tyler Conklin last week. He was a flop, but I like the tight ends. Obviously the running backs are solid. The running backs are, with Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, but I do like Najee Harris. I think obviously he'll end up being a good addition for them as the season goes on. And then obviously Chargers defense holding the Raiders to 9 points. Really held the Chiefs somewhat in check to 21 points, I guess you could say. But their defense has been pretty good. They've been making plays. They've been generating some turnovers. Obviously, they generated 3 picks off of Smith. So this defense is also playing well. Give me the Chargers at home -2.5. I feel like this is obvious. And give me the over 45.5 points. I do think we'll see some points in this one. I think obviously Herbert and Nix, I think this will be a great showdown. I do think you'll see points flying around in this one. And I expect the Chargers here to cover as well. So love it there, guys, for that game. We got Chargers -2.5 and the over 45.5 points. Next game, we got the Saints at the Seahawks. Seahawks set up as 7.5-point favorites here. Total set to 41.5. So this is going to be a really interesting, when I get to the picks, it's going to be a little interesting. But obviously the Saints guys have kind of hung around the first 2 home games, losing each of those games by a possession. But if you really looked at the games, it felt like at times they were on the verge of being completely dominated. And then their defense kind of made plays at various points to keep them in the game. So the question becomes, can they do that on the road without the home energy, without the home crowd? My answer to that would be no. I think you're going to see, honestly, how bad the Saints team is going to end up being. We took the Saints, I think, on the spread the first 2 weeks. And they didn't cover for us, and I was very upset about that, obviously. But here, traveling to Seattle, it's not that I thought the Saints were a good team, by the way, but I did think they would hang in there enough. But here we're at Seattle at Lumen Field, where the Seahawks, I believe, have lost 7 of the last 8 games, which is crazy. I think they have a bounce back spot here, a big bounce back here for Seattle versus a very inferior Saints team. The problem, I think, for me is Spencer Rattler. He's the guy that I think is going to really struggle. I don't see it with him. I think now we're starting to get to the point with him where we've seen enough of a body of work where I just don't have confidence in Spencer Rattler. And the Seahawks defense has been really solid so far this season. They went into Pittsburgh and played fantastic versus Aaron Rodgers. Played fantastic, really for the most part, in Week 1 versus the 49ers as well. But here, I really like, Darnold, this offense to get after it versus the Saints defense that I think could get exposed here. And also, I see the Saints still struggling offensively. So with that said, we're going to take the Seahawks minus the 7.5 to cover. We're going to take the under 41.5 points. I think Saints are really going to have a tough time scoring the ball at all. So I think we will cover the under, and I think the Seahawks will win by 10 plus. So it should be interesting. It could be 31-10, 31-7, and obviously the Seahawks offense is still going to do pretty good there. So, love it for that game, guys. We got Seahawks -7.5 and the under 41.5 points. Okay, next game we got the Dallas Cowboys at the Chicago Bears. Bears here are -1.5 point favorites. Total set to 50.5. Very high totals. One of the higher totals of week number 3. This is, I think, the second highest total on the board. So the question is, are we going to get the game, I guess, that we're expecting, at least that the books are expecting, a high-scoring shootout between Caleb Williams and Dak Prescott, and lots of points there in Chicago? I don't think so. So the Cowboys defense has been talked about this last week as Russell Wilson let them up, and I get that. But did we forget that they actually played pretty well in week number 1? I mean, they held in there versus the Eagles pretty well there in week 1 on the road. I have always thought and always believed the Cowboys defense tends to play better on the road. This has been a historical thing. Their defense has tended to be doggy poo at home and much better on the road for whatever reason. It's just worked out that way. Any game I could think of, I think about games there in Dallas. I just see a lot of shootouts there, especially Cowboys defense just giving it up. But on the road is a little bit of a different story. It looks a lot more like it did in Philadelphia in week 1, where they hang in there and they rally and they play much better. And their matchup with the Bears, for them, isn't bad. You could say Caleb Williams' matchup with the Cowboys is good, but Caleb Williams has been horrible so far to start the season. He's on the verge of getting ousted out of there. I think Bears fans are starting to get a little restless with him. And just some of the throws he's missing and some of the decisions he's making was very much on display in Detroit. So again, they had a little bit of offensive success in Detroit. Again, that was kind of a dome game, right? I'm not surprised by these dome games going over sometimes, especially in Detroit, in Dallas. A lot of overs hit there. So when we remove that variable, Caleb Williams at home in Chicago on grass hasn't looked that great. Really the course of his career. So I think here, until I see the Bears find something offensively, I'm not going to trust them offensively. I can't. Meanwhile, for the Cowboys, with Dak Prescott and company, their offenses obviously look pretty good in that shootout when they had there versus the Giants. They're going on the road, so I don't think they'll put up the points offensively either as much here in Chicago, despite, they have a great matchup obviously here with the Bears. I think these defenses bounce back a little bit here, with this game being outside. I know it sounds like a silly thing, but I think it'll make a little bit of a difference here. And I am going to take the Cowboys, though, plus the 1.5, and we're going to rock the under 50.5 points here. Like I said, I trust Dak Prescott in this offense more than I'm going to trust anyone on the Bears at this point. I'm going to roll with the Cowboys here. And then the under 50.5, like I said, this total's too high for these two teams. I know what we saw last week, but a lot of times I think we're going to see a little bit more of a stinker here, at least offensively, especially from the Bears. I think the Bears are not going to have as much offensive success as the books, I think, are expecting them to. That's just my opinion. So I like the Cowboys plus 1.5 and the under 50.5 points here. Okay, next game we have the Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. We get the 49ers here favored by 1.5. Total here set to 43.5 points. So obviously we saw Mac Jones come in last week in relief of Brock Purdy, play and start that game, throw 3 touchdowns, look absolutely terrific in that 49ers offense. So the point being, I think, with the 49ers that we got to learn is there's a lot of quarterbacks that could be inserted into that offense and have success. Kyle Shanahan obviously puts them in good positions to be successful. So we're expecting that, I think, again here. I don't really see any issues here with Mac Jones having success again, particularly coming home now, taking on a Cardinals team that definitely showed some vulnerabilities defensively at the end of that Panthers game. I don't really care. They let the Panthers back into that game. So I was not impressed with their defense there at the end. And traveling out on the road and, to take on a division rival here, I think this is going to be tough for them, obviously. Initially, I wanted to take the Cardinals because I was like, oh, Mac Jones is playing, Brock Purdy's out. But I'm like, man, Mac Jones actually played really good last week. So maybe we have to buy stock into the fact that Kyle Shanahan puts these quarterbacks in there, and regardless who's in there, there's a good chance they could have success just because the system's so good. So obviously we like seeing that. So 49ers, as far as defensively goes, we saw the Saints put up, 21 points on them. I think their defense could be a little bit vulnerable as well. I think both these defenses are a little vulnerable. So I'm going to take the 49ers being the home team in this matchup with the way Mac Jones played. Obviously, I'm going to give a little bit of love here to the home team. I'm going to take the 49ers minus 1.5. I'm going to rock that over 43.5 points. I don't think at this point, I think there'll be enough points in this one to get us there. This is not a high total at all. It's one of the lower totals actually of the week. And like I said, I think the 49ers are going to have offensive success. But I also think the Cardinals will to a point here as well. And I'm expecting this over to hit. So love it there, guys, for this game. You have 49ers minus 1.5 and the over 43.5 points. Next game, we got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the New York Giants here from MetLife Stadium on Sunday Night Football. Giants 5.5-point dogs. Total here set to 44.5 points. So coming into this one, Chiefs are 0-2 to start the season. Well, a lot of injuries. Rashee Rice is out. He's suspended. Xavier Worthy may be out again. We'll see. They have some issues there on the offensive line as well with injuries. So we'll see exactly what happens here in this one. But obviously, Chiefs definitely coming in banged up. Definitely not 100%. And they haven't looked very good offensively either for the most part. So definitely been a struggle for them so far. Obviously, they're losing in Brazil to the Chargers and losing at home last week to the Eagles in that Super Bowl rematch. Meanwhile, the Giants, coming off a very surprising game in Dallas where Russell Wilson flipped the switch and he looked like the old Russell Wilson where he looked dominant. Russell Wilson threw for over 400 yards last week. Obviously threw a bunch of touchdowns there to Malik Neighbors. Looked terrific in that game in Dallas and really the game of the week and an absolutely wild game. So the question is, coming back home, can the Giants hang in there and keep it close? Did they get something? Did they find something in Dallas? I think they did. I think Russell Wilson is that is definitely gonna give him some confidence, and I think we'll see that translate a little bit more to the Giants offensively. And defensively, this Giants team is supposed to be really good. Obviously, we didn't see it too much in Dallas. We saw a lot more in Week 1. They were better in Week 1, but they had a tough schedule, to be fair, to open the season with 2 road games. Now they're coming back home 0-2. Both these teams hungry for a win. And I think the Giants are going to be able to hang in there. Will they be able to win? I'd probably say the Chiefs are probably going to win, but I think this game will be close, and I think the under is going to hit as well. I think it's going to be a tough physical game. You're going to see both these defenses get after it, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to continue to struggle a bit offensively. And the Giants, how much stock can we buy in their offense? I'm going to buy a little bit. I'm going to trust them to cover the spread. I'm not going to trust them to get us to an over, though. I think that's a little bit of a big ask. Both these defenses are very talented. I do like the under in this one, guys. So love it there for this game. We got the Giants plus 5.5 and the under 44.5 points in this one, guys. Okay, and then finally, our last game on the slate, guys. We got the Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens here favored by 6 points. The total here set to 51.5 points. This is your highest total of the week, and probably deservingly so. Detroit cleared this total by themselves last week. So both these offenses, as we know, are very dominant. There's probably going to be a lot of points in this one. I'm certainly expecting that. Be a lot of fun to watch this one here on Monday night. So the question is, Detroit, the last time they played at Baltimore, it didn't go well. They lost by a lot. They got absolutely schooled off the field. So the question becomes, can the Lions hang in there? Can their offense travel on the road here to Baltimore and play better here on the road? I think there's too much talent on Detroit to say otherwise. I think that, their Week 1 performance was obviously horrible, but they got their confidence back in Week 2, which I think is huge. Obviously, putting up 52 points, they were very dominant. So I think this is going to be a great football game. I'm excited to watch it. I think you'll see a lot of points. But I do think the Lions will hang in there on the road. I really do. I think they're I'm a Lions fan, as you guys know. It's not rocket science. It's right on the back wall. You guys know who I like. But we did fade the Lions last week, and it didn't go well. I faded both my teams last week, and it didn't work out so well. So I'm getting back on the Lions train here at +6. I'll take them on the spread +6. And I'm going to rock that over 51.5 points. I think we're going to see a shootout here in Baltimore. But the Lions, honestly, their weapons I do trust more than Baltimore's. As far as with Gibbs, Montgomery, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. The Ravens are kind of like, we haven't gotten a lot of production out of Mark Andrews, right, at tight end. The receivers have always been, outside of Zay Flowers has been decent for sure. But the receivers make me wonder. An older DeAndre Hopkins, Rashad Bateman he's okay. You know, I don't really see a lot of explosion from the wide receivers. Obviously, this running game can certainly give you troubles. But I think that's where the Lions could have a little bit more success defending the run. They've been okay defending the run. And I think you're going to see a close game in Baltimore. Give me the Lions +6 and give me that over 51.5 points here. All right, guys, that is it for our picks. We covered every game, spread and total. Let's have a great week. I'm very confident in this week, and hopefully, obviously, we can turn it around from last week and get some winners up on the board here, guys. So, as always, I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a lot of fun making these videos. And if you guys did enjoy, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe. Share it with a friend and things like that. And also let me know, what's your favorite pick of the week? What do you like this week as far as on the slate? What's your favorite spread or total pick? So, as always, appreciate all of you guys. Oh, Survivor pick. I forgot to make it last week. I meant to. So we're technically 1-0 in Survivor because I didn't pick one last week. Survivor pick, I'm going to roll with the Seattle Seahawks. So far we got the Denver Broncos in week 1. We didn't have one in week 2. It would have been Baltimore for what it's worth, but I forgot to say it. So I can't give myself credit for it. But I'm taking the Seahawks, I believe, for this week. So that'd be my Survivor pick this week would be the Seahawks if you guys are in a Survivor pool. I like their spot. I like saving the Bills, honestly. You could take the Buffalo Bills. They're the biggest spread on the board, but I like saving them for a different game. I think the Seahawks are going to absolutely destroy the Saints. I'm very confident in that. So that'll probably be, that might maybe our spread pick of the week when we do our official bets video. I really like the Seahawks this week. So outside of that, though, guys, that is going to do it for me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you guys all next time. Peace out.